Delmarva Today with Don Rush.
The Maryland and Delaware legislative sessions get underway. The University of Maryland Eastern Shore opens a new School of Veterinary Medicine, and a look at a new novel, Lyme Wars, a love story by Pam Andrews. Welcome to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush. And we have on the phone with us Susan Canfora. She's a reporter for Coastal Point. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Don.
So first of all, let me turn to the state of Maryland, and the General Assembly is now underway, and I understand that you talked to the local state senator, Mary Beth Carrozza, about what she's looking for out of Annapolis.
Yes, I did. Both the Maryland and the Delaware legislative sessions for this year, for 2024, have begun. Maryland Senator Mary Beth Carrozza told me that public safety is one of her top priorities this year, and she'd like to concentrate on juvenile justice reform and what she called violent juveniles. She said there's been an increase in crime statewide in Maryland, and that both Democrats and Republicans are committed to fighting it. And moreover, Governor Wes Moore is willing to work with her and other lawmakers to try to get this problem under control. Senator Carrozza said she's also concerned about the budget and a deficit in Maryland. She's concerned about funding for the Maryland Blueprint for Education. You might recall that's a plan for more pre-kindergarten classes. And the biggest, most controversial aspect of that plan is a big raise for teachers. Lawmakers are also expected to work on better health care access and bringing more physician assistants to Maryland.
So what are we looking at in terms of Delaware?
In Delaware, I talked to Representative Rich Collins, and he told me he's concerned about rising costs to correct faulty emissions on vehicles. He was so concerned that he joined two or three other lawmakers, including Representative Michael Ramone, and this past December. And together, they filed a complaint against DNREC. And in Delaware, DNREC is the Department of Natural Resources. And the gentleman who filed the lawsuit said the DNREC is not following state law. He told me DNREC instituted a new procedure so that when vehicles are inspected, they're hooked up to a state-owned computer to check for emissions problems. Cars that can't pass the emission standards have been required to get at least $200 worth of repairs for those emissions. But Mr. Collins is concerned because next year that will go up to a requirement to get up to $450 in repairs. Then the year after that, and every year thereafter, the requirement would to get up to $1,000 in repairs. And he says that most people who have emissions problems are probably people who are working, middle-class working people who are on a budget to begin with. So he is trying to cap that requirement at $450, so it never gets any higher than that. As the Delaware session began, Representatives Ron Gray and Mr. Collins and other lawmakers welcomed newly elected 37th District Representative Valerie Jones-Giltner. You might remember that she was elected during a special election to replace former Representative Ruth Briggs King, and she resigned in November because she moved out of the district. She moved out of District 37. Mrs. Gilder told me she has goals already, and they include being sure that the state has a base for stronger families, safe classrooms, and less government intrusion into the family. She is not a politician. She does not have a background in politics. Her background is in healthcare. And she said that's probably better because she's going in clean with no political background, and that will lead her to work on the problems that she thinks are necessary for her constituents. One of them is getting adequate health care in Delaware. Representative Gray told me he also wants to concentrate on public safety. He said people are driving way too fast, maybe because they're coming to Delaware from New York and bigger cities, and they're not used to the slower pace here. He'd like to get them to slow down. And he also said part of public health is encouraging people to take better care of themselves, to exercise, and eat right. And he said that all falls into his public health category and his strategy for the 2024 session this year that just started just this month. So that's what they're working on, and they'll certainly have more items and more issues as the months go by, and we'll keep you up to date.
So what are we looking at, by the way, in terms of offshore wind? There seems to be lots of controversy about whether or not some of the towns want this. There's been, I understand, some offer by one of the wind operations for some kind of money for upgrading, for capital projects, that kind of thing. What are we looking at there?
For the town of Bethany, you're absolutely right. Don, it might be difficult to imagine that something as natural and refreshing as wind could cause this much controversy. But when it comes to wind energy, it certainly has. Last Friday, there was a crowd of concerned Bethany Beach residents and property owners who attended a meeting that the town council hosted. That meeting was to hear about a proposal from a company called U.S. Wind. And that company wants to put a wind farm off the coast of Bethany Beach for wind power. The development manager, Mike Delmarva, was there at that meeting, and he took the podium and explained there's a plan for more than 100 turbines to be installed off the coast. And they would be of considerable height, from a little more than 800 feet high to more than 900 feet high. And, of course, many people are concerned that that would ruin the beautiful view of the ocean and looking out over the ocean and the sunset. They were concerned about lights on the turbines. But Mr. Delmarva said, look, it would mean 1,100 megawatts of clean wind energy. Meantime, Ørsted, the well-known Danish wind energy company, has been interested in the East Coast for some time. But I talked to Delaware Representative Ron Gray, and he told me that Ørsted has pulled out of a couple of projects in New Jersey. He's very concerned because Delaware Governor John Carney is moving ahead with plans for wind energy in Delaware. Governor Carney has begun negotiations with U.S. Wind, and of course his interest in wind power aligns with President Biden, who wants to install wind power in the country by 2030. It's important to note that U.S. Wind wants to move forward with projects in Maryland, but the company has to first get permission from Delaware because they want to use the Delaware Seashore State Park. The company wants to connect turbines at the substation near the Indian River Power Plant in Delaware. Representative Gray was at the Selbyville Council meeting last week, and he told the council and me that the governor didn't even call him to get his opinion about wind energy, and that was likely because the governor already knew how he felt. And he feels there are a lot of questions. He said, how will it affect tourists? Will Delaware lose money? What if a ship hits a turbine? What about the birds that are flying by? He said the governor did not show due diligence by moving ahead. At the meeting at Bethany Beach last Friday, residents who spoke were concerned that that view of the ocean would be disturbed by these tall turbines. They wanted to know about lights on the turbines at night. They wanted to know about the sunset, what they're going to do to our view, what's going to happen in the tourism industry. Will people not want to come to Bethany anymore because of these turbines? Mr. Delmarva said the lights on the turbines would only be on for a few hours at a time, and he told the council that U.S. Wind would make annual payments to the town of Bethany Beach in as much as $100,000 a year. So town council did not make a decision at that meeting last Friday. They're expected to further discuss the project and eventually vote on the proposal. So as soon as we find out how they voted, we will let you know.
Because one of the things that strikes me is that there's this resistance. I know there's the Delaware Association of Coastal Towns, Hinlopen Acres, Rehoboth Beach, as you mentioned, Dewey Beach, Bethany Beach, also South Bethany. And there's this offer for this extra money, and yet there is this reluctance, apparently, to necessarily take it. Fenwick Mayor, I guess, declined to participate in the community benefits. We have other folks not listed, Lewis, Fenwick, that kind of thing. What's going on there in terms of benefits and this resistance we see?
Exactly. Well, that's a lot of money, $100,000 a year. Of course, as you mentioned earlier, it could go toward capital improvements. Some of the mayors and council members are just saying, no, we don't want this because our constituents, our residents, the people who pay taxes here and who have had homes here for many years are really opposed. Somebody stood up and complained about the wind energy at the Bethany Beach meeting, and I guess the person was so upset that somebody on the council said, look, we're not trying to sell you out. If that's what you think, that's not our plan. We're just trying to do what's best for the environment and what's best for the town. So it's caused a lot of controversy depending on the town. Some of them want it, some of them don't want it. It's going to go on. It's gone on for years, as you know, and it's going to continue to go on for at least many more months to come.
Yeah, because I understand, by the way, that the Ørsted, the reason why they pulled out, at least what they say from New Jersey, is apparently some kind of supply issue in terms of the equipment and that kind of thing. But we'll see how that works out. The other thing, of course, masks seem to be back. BB Healthcare reinstituting the mask mandate. What's the story there? Is this concern that we may be getting upsurge to say COVID or flu or even RSV?
COVID, flu, and RSV, and just the common cold, as I've been struggling with, and I think you have too in the past couple of weeks, they're all just rampant right now. Cases of COVID have gone up. I've been told by the doctors I've interviewed not to worry about another outbreak like we saw a couple of years ago because so many people are vaccinated. But the cases of COVID are going up right now, as well as these other illnesses. So because of that, BB Healthcare is now again requiring masks. And they're required for all visitors, patients, and staff because not only is COVID on the rise, but also flu and RSV. They're requiring that masks be worn in all BB hospitals, in the emergency rooms, cancer centers, outpatient locations, and doctor's offices. This is the first time this is being required since last April. And also Tidal Health in Salisbury is now requiring masks for those who are visiting patients and if they accompany patients to outpatient services. And they also want, BB's press release said, they also don't want them to just be, light masks that are maybe cloth masks, but they want them to be, the heavy masks that are almost surgical quality. And I've also been told by doctors, and I've interviewed so many doctors about COVID in the past couple of years, that it's a good idea, if you have a paper mask or even a cloth mask, to put a coffee filter inside for double protection, especially if you're around somebody who's been exposed to COVID or who actively has COVID. So this is the time to protect yourself, not only with vaccines, but also with these masks.
Any sense, by the way, of resistance to this, or is this pretty much, if you could show up to the hospital, don't have the mask, you don't get in?
No, they'll give you a mask.
They will?
Yeah, I went to visit somebody there, and I didn't have a mask. I think I had a mask in my pocket, but I didn't have it on. And before they let me in, they said, here, put this on. So they will give you one. Same with college campuses. Before you go on to college campus, they'll give you one anywhere you go. If you don't have one, they'll provide one. Or, like you said, they'll turn you away.
So, and this is kind of a sort of a regional thing in the sense of we have BB, of course, and then Tidal Health as well. I mean, it seems all of the facilities seem to be moving in this direction then.
Well, Tidal Health, of course, has hospitals in other towns. I think they have a hospital in Seaford and Critchfield. So it's regional. It's not just local. It's regional. And I'm sure nationwide the same thing is happening. So we hear an awful lot in the national news about these outbreaks of COVID and RSV as well.
So finally, we have a delegate, Charles Otto, apparently a DUI and his future. What's going on with? What do we know so far?
Charles Otto is a Maryland delegate. He was last Friday released to a sober driver after he was charged with several offenses, including driving while intoxicated and driving under the influence. Fruitland Police issued a press release. Fruitland, Maryland Police issued a press release, and they said they stopped him around 5 p.m. last Friday on Route 13 North at Pollitt Drive because his vehicle failed to move over away from an emergency vehicle that was stopped on the side of the road. And of course, that's a law. If you see a police car stopped on the side of the road, you have to get in the other lane so that you protect the driver, as well as the police officer who's probably standing outside the window and at the driver's side. So Representative Otto was also charged with driving without a required license and driving with an expired license. And my understanding is that he was asked to do some field sobriety tests, which he failed. Representative Otto is a Republican. He's a member of the Maryland House of Delegates, and he represents District 38A. He was elected in 2011. No word yet on what's going to happen to him, if he's going to go to court or if he's going to be fined, but we'll certainly let you know when we find out.
We've been speaking with Susan Canfora, reporter for Coastal Point, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk with us this afternoon.
Always my pleasure.
You're listening to Delmarva Today. This is Don Rush.
Delmarva Today with Don Rush.